The situation in Syria is escalating at a dangerous pace. Turkey continues its military assault into northern Syria, forcing tens of thousands to flee. Aid agencies warn nearly 500,000 people near the border are at risk. Amna Nawaz has the latest.
Inside Syria's northern border, Turkish tanks let loose a hail of gunfire. Turkey stepped up its assault on U.S. allied Syrian Kurdish forces on the ground and in the air. On day 2 of the offensive, Turkish planes bombed Kurdish-held towns, dotting the Syrian skyline with smoke. Near Kamishli in northeastern Syria, families fled for the Iraqi border.
Last night, they fired rockets, and I swear the situation is not good at all.
Those still in town grieved in the hospital for family killed by the airstrikes. In Ankara, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan defended the operation, dubbed Peace Spring. He insisted the onslaught is about protecting territory.
Just like all the other operations carried out by Turkey, the aim of the Peace Spring is to contribute to Syria's territorial and political integrity.
Turkey says the territory should include a 20-mile buffer zone along the Syrian border to protect against Syrian Kurds, who it views as terrorists. Turkey today hit a number of Kurdish-held border towns. The assault on the U.S. Kurdish allies came after the U.S. withdrew its forces from the area on Monday. On Sunday, President Trump spoke with Erdogan on the phone about the removal, giving Turkey a green light to attack the Kurds. The Syrian Kurds played a key role in the U.S.-led anti-ISIS coalition that took back territory held by the so-called Islamic State. After coming under fire for the troop withdrawal, President Trump threatened economic action against Turkey, a NATO ally, over the attack. In Washington this afternoon, President Trump weighed in.
We are going to possibly do something very, very tough with respect to sanctions and other financial things.
The U.S. also announced today it had in its custody 2 ISIS fighters from a group of 4 known as the Beatles for their British accents. They were known for beheading prisoners. Experts worry that other ISIS fighters detained in Syria by Kurdish forces could escape amid the onslaught. But Turkey's foreign minister said it will take over the prisons if the assault on the Kurds succeeds.
It will be our responsibility to make sure that they will be held accountable for what they did. And we will make sure that they will not be released.
In response to the criticism, Erdogan threatened to send Turkey's 3.6 million Syrian refugees to Europe.
If you try to label this operation as an invasion, it's very simple. We will open the gates and send 3.6 million refugees your way.
Since the fighting started on Wednesday, an estimated 60,000 have already fled their homes in northern Syria. The violence now threatens some 450,000 Syrians who live within 3 miles of the Turkish border. Human rights groups say they are all at risk.
And for now, an inside look, we have Sinam Mohamad with us. She's the U.S. representative for the Syrian Democratic Council. It's the political wing of the Syrian Democratic Forces, the coalition of Kurdish, Arab, and other minority groups fighting on the ground in northeast Syria. The council's mission is to work towards implementing a, quote, secular, democratic, and decentralized system for all of Syria. Sinam, welcome to the NewsHour.
Thank you so much.
So I have to ask you, Turkish President Erdogan has said the purpose of these strikes is to fight and target terrorists on the ground. You have been in contact with people on the ground in those communities. What are you hearing today?
Unfortunately, what's going on the ground, it is not the same thing that Mr. Erdogan is telling. First of all, this attack has been launched from yesterday. And even though the agreement between the United States and the Turkey and the SDF about the safe zone or about the security mechanism, how to leave this border safe, this is we agree to. We agree because we wanted to have this area peace. We wanted to avoid the war in the area. Unfortunately, Erdogan, he is not satisfied with this agreement. Although we are, showing very flexibility in this agreement. They said you have to withdraw all the fighters, the Kurdish fighters. Okay, we accepted, we withdrew it about 5 kilometers away from the border. They say you have to pull all the heavy weapons from the border. We did it, and we pulled back all the heavy weapons away from the border.
You're saying that in those negotiations,
this is in the
you did not
agreement.
expect the Turkish forces to launch this offensive.
This is what the United States told us. Okay, this agreement, it will be to avoid the war in between Turkey, not to attack you.
That is what the U.S. told you.
Yes, and this is what we agreed to.
So when President Trump said that the U.S. forces would be leaving, did you know then that Turkish forces would be moving in?
It was suddenly like this happened, when Erdogan, he is gathering all his forces and his army across to our border, to the border. That time here we were in the United States, and we asked them, he is gathering all the forces there, and it seems he's not satisfied what's going on in our agreement. They say he's Erdogan, we don't know what can he do, but we are there on the ground. But suddenly what happened there, the US, they pull back their forces from the border only, from the safe zone, which they call it safe zone border of Turkey, and put it back inside Syria. And this makes Turkey to come and to attack this region.
Yes, and Sinam, I apologize, we don't have too much time. I do want to get to some of the people you've been talking to on the ground. What are they telling you?
Now the situation is very catastrophe. Turkey is shelling from airspace and from the artillery. Both of them, they are using the airplanes, and they are shelling all over the border, from the Euphrates River to the Tigris rivers, to the border of Iraqi river. It is about 450 kilometers long they are shelling.
And what is the impact on the ground?
The civilians are there. They are shelling the cities. Where are the civilians? For instance, I will give you one example. In Qamishli city, which is the biggest inhabited people there, yesterday they shelled a neighborhood, which is a Christian neighborhood. There, 2 people, they be killed. They are Christians, and the other, they are injured. As well as we have in Tel Abyad. Now we have people, they demonstrate against this attack of Turkey in Tel Abyad, and it's inhabited, Tel Abyad and Ras Al Ain. It is about 400,000 living there. And when they demonstrate against this attack, Turkey shelling this demonstration, and 10 people died. This is what's happening. So they are telling we are not shelling the civilian.
Yes,
but the civilian.
But you're hearing they are shelling civilians as well.
Yes.
I want to ask you about something a senior State Department official mentioned to us earlier. They said that they think this is a big mistake. They wish that Turkey had not launched this offensive. And they also said that they plan to work with the SDF in the future. Very briefly, do you ever see the SDF working with the U.S. again?
Now they are inside, still they are there. The U.S., they are still there, military. But we hope that they can stop this attack. This is what we hope. They hope that can they stop this attack, because we would like to have the stability. We would like to have the peace process talk in order to save the people, the Syrian people. It's enough for the Syrian people. They suffer a lot through these 8 years, and now this attack will be destabilize the area, and will be the consequences of it. It will be very dangerous for Syria and even for Turkey.
You would like to see the U.S. act right now.
Yes.
Sinam Mohamad, the U.S. representative for the Syrian Democratic Council, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
We invited the Turkish ambassador to the United States to join us on tonight's show. The embassy declined. Now we get a perspective from Turkey expert Soner Cagaptay. He's the director of the Turkish Research Program at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. He's also the author of a new book called Erdogan's Empire. Soner, welcome back to the NewsHour.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I want to ask you about this. The president, obviously, of Turkey has said this is a national security concern. Explain for us, what is the threat, and how do these strikes address that threat?
There is a legitimate security concern for Turkey here. The Syrian Kurdish group is an offshoot of a Turkish Kurdish group called PKK, and that group is listed as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States, as well as by a number of NATO countries, of course, Turkey. And the Kurdish group in Syria, known as People's Protection Units, YPG, is an offshoot of this group that is designated. This group is now establishing a legal entity, a state-like entity along Turkey's border in Syria. And of course, Turkey for a long time tolerated that because the United States partnered with this Kurdish group to combat ISIS. But with the defeat of ISIS, now Turkey wants not only this relationship to be reconsidered, but also is going after this offshoot of this terrorist group in northern Syria.
Well, let me ask you about that fight against ISIS now, because even U.S. officials will say that ISIS could become resurgent again, and that Turkey launching an offensive will take the attention of those same forces that helped to defeat ISIS away from ISIS and allow them to reassess and reassert themselves there. What do you say to that?
That would be an unfortunate outcome, and that's why I think it's important for this conflict to come to a speedy end. And just seeing that United States might be mediating between Turkey and the fighting parties. I think, though, at this stage, it is important for Washington to not appear as if it is mocking or underestimating a severe security threat to Turkey. Turkey is a United States ally by treaty. It's a member of NATO. And I think for a very long time, the Turks are very patient, allowing the United States to work with this group that is a sworn enemy of Ankara. And now, of course, they have gone after it. So hopefully this will end up quite soon, and we'll see some more stability in northern Syria.
You know, Soner, a senior State Department official briefed some reporters earlier and mentioned that they did not think that they gave a green light in any way to President Erdogan. And they also said they hope this mission and operation concludes quickly. Do you have any idea of how long it will go on?
I think Turkey at this stage wants to establish bridgeheads in northern Syria. And what Ankara has done, something quite smart, is they have used as entry points Arab majority areas in northern Syria where Turkish troops would be more welcome than had they gone into Kurdish majority areas. I don't think Turkey is going to invade and hold on to large parts of northern Syria. They only want to establish bridgeheads populated by Arabs in order to undermine and weaken the Syrian Kurdish group.
There is obviously a lot of talk here about this move now empowering Turkey's position in the area. They could expand further. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. But I also wonder if you think that this empowers Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Does it empower Iran? Does it empower Russia?
It probably does empower those parties, and I think that's why the conflict in Syria needs a global solution. For once, I think, other than looking at ISIS problem, the United States has not really looked into the other problem, which is the problem of Bashar al-Assad, the dictator, who has bombed millions of people, and he's the root cause of the radicalization of Syrian people. And I think, of course, short of that, you cannot find a global fix to Syria's problem.
How much of this offensive do you think is driven as primarily a security concern for President Erdogan? How much of it is him seeing an opportunity to make good on something he's wanted to do for a while he is vulnerable electorally at home?
Look, I have been quite critical of Turkish President Erdogan. After all, I wrote an entire book on him called The New Sultan. But in this case, I think President Erdogan is right. The concern that he has towards this terrorist group is shared not by those who support him in Turkey, but also by many of those who oppose him. There is broad consensus among Turkey's 82 million citizenry that this is the time for Turkey to act. Otherwise, a terror group across the country's longest land border in Syria will establish an independent or autonomous political entity. So in this regard, I think the timing is right and Mr. Erdogan is right.
Soner Cagaptay of the Washington Institute's Turkish Research Program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.